Hello and welcome back to the Innsmouth Case with me, Bardon. Okay, so from here I can actually pick where I want to go back to. So I think I'm not going to do every single. I'm not going to do like every single possibility. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the harbour, and then I want to be able to go to the lighthouse from there and see what happens with that. And then after that, then we'll think about like other places that we want to go. So what I'm thinking at the moment is I do want to explore the other areas of the town that I haven't been to. So that includes, as I said, the lighthouse. Then we chose to go to the harbour instead of being able to go other places, so we could go there instead as well. Also, I want to go and see what happens if you actually take part in the orgy, what kind of ending you get there. And I want to go to the church and argue with those guys, take part in the argument and see what that does. And the other one would be probably to go back to the very start if I can and see if we can actually tell her, listen, not interested in taking your case, sorry. I don't know whether we can do that because it seems that the beach is maybe in one of the earliest ones, but let's do what we're going to do today, which is going to go back to the harbour and load it. Into the harbour, the signpost is much better than the local hospital. You wonder if a hospital is even needed here. It's half an hour walk. A mile long carpet of cobblestones is now ahead of you. The traffic in Boston is more hectic, but at least they have heard of asphalt before. As you keep walking, there are fewer and fewer residential buildings along your path. In their stead, there are now warehouses that must be fish markets due to the smell. You can also hear the occasional metallic clanking from nearby workshops. People in grey raincoats are walking towards you. They're probably fishermen who have some errands to run. Now and again, in that split second when you pass one another, you catch a glimpse of the face hidden under the hoods. Puffy eyes that look at you suspiciously. Though there are a few clouds in the sky, there's no chance of rain as far as you can tell. Why are they all wrapped up like that? You wonder if they have a sixth sense for approaching storms. The sound of the rhythmic blows of a hammer nearby tears you away from these thoughts. It will be interesting to watch the work in the shipyard, but little Tabitha isn't likely to be here to play. From a distance you can already see the masts of the boats, which rise up into the sky like a row of spears. You walk around a small street at the quay with the harbour basin just behind it. Let's breathe in the sea air. Your lungs fill with fresh air and a peaceful feeling settles within you. The air seems to do you a world of good. More than that, it fills your life. You should travel to the rural coast more often to escape the noise and smell of the big city. The view of the harbour is splendid. Boats of all shapes and sizes are coming and going. Nets are being emptied out, and fish seem to endlessly splashing into huge freezer boxes. Local trades are being sealed with handshakes, and at the end of a wide headland, a huge lighthouse watches majestically over the bay, the ideal postcard motif if it weren't for the people. You only know fishermen from the movies, and you have to admit that you have certain prejudices. These include they have weather-beaten skin, and the captains always have well-groomed beards. They are either strong, silent types or hard-drinking lads who sing filthy sea shanties. These creatures in front of you are neither majestic nor leery. They move around like tragic hunchbacks you'd expect to see in French cathedrals. A few yards to right there's a fork in the road, and a road sign points further north. Its inscription reads, Innsmouth Paradise Beach. In the far distance you can see a building that looks like a church. Hang on, a church? On the coast? How eccentric. So we're going to the lighthouse, and then if we can, we'll go to the church after. Initially, it looked as if the lighthouse was quite close, but as you keep walking you realise the trip is much longer than you expected. A path consisting of jagged rocks leads to the lighthouse in the harbour. The lighthouse is on the end of a narrow strip of land. As you walk towards it, the surging waves risk drenching your clothes in icy salt water. It takes all your concentration and some balancing not to wipe out on the slippery rocks. In your middle eye, new bills are already fluttering in the mailbox. One from the shoe repair shop, one from the physiotherapist. An overturned wooden sign lies on the ground between a few of the rocks. You read the label, warning, absolutely no trespassing. Innsmouth hasn't been precisely inviting since your arrival, so you already know the tune. You approach the lighthouse looking for shelter, but with every step you take the place becomes more and more unwelcoming. The grey clouds transform into a mighty storm. Lightning strikes the top of the tower and sparks fly. Despite the storm, the lighthouse keeper hasn't put on the signal, so there is no beam of light to guide the boats out there safely to the harbour of Innsmouth. Soon you're completely drenched, but you make it at last. You're standing at the door leading to the inside of the lighthouse. Some joker has scratched something into the flaking white layer of paint on the surface of the door. Do not come any closer. They want your body. This sounds suspiciously like danger. You'd have to be pretty damn stupid not to take that improvised inscription seriously. An old lighthouse holds many potential sources of danger. The rusty structure is about to fall in on itself. How unsafe railings and stairs. And there just may be a madman with a shotgun waiting for you. You consider the dangers that this dilapidated old building may hold. A fragile building about to collapse. You have fallen others with aluminium hats, sex-hungry, mindless and naked cultists. House dust. Not to mention the missing girl that you need to find. Still, how often do you come to a place like this? Almost automatically your hand comes to rest on the black iron door handle and pushes it down slowly and carefully. The door opens a crack, giving you a small glimpse into the neglected interior of the lighthouse. Darkness. Let's enter. Unsure what to do next, you peek into the darkness. It's dark. It's a dark, tall building. A very, very tall and thin building. Admittedly, it is highly unlikely that the lighthouse will collapse today of all days. At least this is what you keep repeating in your mind, like a mantra. You step inside. It's dry but cold. The icy stale air cools your shivering limbs. Even further, a spiral staircase leads up to the higher levels and to the top of the lighthouse. On the higher floors you can see round windows in the side of the wall, through which thunder and lightning throw brief flickers of light. Even the lowest corridors catches some of this light, so that you find yourself not completely in the dark. There are also some lamps that wind up along the banister. The black and white tiles of the floor have probably not been cleaned since the dawn of time. Storage boxes are cluttered around the place and take up about a third of the area of the ground level. To your astonishment, the walls of the lighthouse consist of a solid stone foundation. The metallic red and white painted exterior cladding must have been installed sometime later as a modernization measure. You think that a sex cult in here is now a bit unlikely, but you do not want to give up hope just yet. What now? Let's flip the light switch. Trying won't hurt, unless, of course, you blow a fuse. You flip the light switch and wait in the toilet for something to happen. You know from old lamps in the cellar that they sometimes need a little time. You flip the switch again and again. You come to the conclusion that you'll have to make do with the pale daylight. As you look more closely, you realize that there's an inscription just above the light switch. Read the inscription. You manage to make out, activate to close the electrical circuit. Electricity powers many machines, especially those giving off light and warmth. Indeed, that is how light switches work. Well observed, strange person who wrote on the wall. Let's inspect the boxes. Considering that the lighthouse is easy to reach from the port, it strikes you as odd that there are all of these supplies here. The boxes seem to hold food supplies, which make up the bulk of the goods, and loads of spare electrical parts. You inspect one of the open crates that, according to its label, has been delivered by a company from Salem. Spare lamps, tools, wiring. In theory, even a dusty system such as this one can be brought back to life with all these parts. The food is not quite to your taste, but efficient. Tinned tuna, sauerkraut, and all kinds of canned fruit still fill over half of one of the open crates. 4 of the boxes are empty. 12 others are still untouched. Whoever lived here must have avoided contact with the locals, like the devil avoiding holy water. Finally, some sensible people. Climb up the stairs. The banister has suffered the most age damage. The ravages of time have not only worn away the paint on the metal, but also the iron struts and pillars themselves. The scaffold seems to move precariously as you walk up, just as if the construction is about to collapse. When you're halfway up the stairs, you can hear a loud metallic creaking sound. Well, whatever that sound is, I need a drink before I continue, so 1 second. Ah, that's better. Okay. Let's see what the sound is. The stairs suddenly jerk down a little, and your insides feel like they continue dropping to the ground. Fine dust flutters down over your head. You try to guess the depth of the fall. If the structure were to collapse now, you would break quite a few bones, or worse. The chances of you getting caught up in the sex cult decrease with every step you take. Keep walking. Just because the cove's spinal staircase is a bit loose, that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to collapse, right? And perhaps it's just the residual alcohol in your bloodstream that's causing everything to spin. You carefully continue your way to one of the highest floors. About 30 feet above the entrance hall is the first mezzanine floor. A metal plate in the core of the spiral staircase will also provide some stability if the whole thing wasn't so damn rusty. You can see a plain bed, a desk with a telephone, a chest of drawers, and a wardrobe with an embedded mirror. A Persian carpet is laid out over the ribbed metal floor, a pathetic attempt to make this room a little more homely. At least there is a window on this level. Rain pelts against the glass. The weather outside seems to get worse and worse. You hesitate. Let's inspect the room more closely. There's not much to explore here. Some neatly folded sheets and bedding have been placed on the bed. Awaiting a new inhabitant, perhaps? You turn to the desk. On it are a few envelopes and an atlas. You inspect the envelopes. You grab an envelope from the stack. Your fingers glide over the rough, fibrous paper. In the faint light, you can see how yellow the envelope is. Either this is specially made paper from the craft shop, or these letters are pretty old. The envelope is not sealed, so you fish out 10 $100 bills and a piece of paper with strange doodles that don't make sense to you. Is that a language? The characters are too chaotic for a normal text, going across in rows and back again. On the back you find a small text in English. Means of payment necessary for the purchase of goods and service, valid from to, with some doodles instead of a date. Maybe it's art. The only question is whether you're going to pocket the money or not. Well, he's a shady detective down on his luck. Of course he's going to pocket it. The envelope has not been sealed, not a soul around for miles. You need the money badly. You briefly try to convince yourself that the money might go off. There seems to be something of a shelf life implied. You can't think of any better argument, and even those you'd be hard-pressed to accept as an excuse for your behaviour. Hastily, you stuff the bills into the inside pocket of your jacket. That's where they are now, right above your heart. You put the scribbled paper back into the envelope, because that's exactly how you found it, precisely like that. You inspect the bed. It doesn't look super cozy. There's a note pinned to the headboard. Place of rest, used for sleep cycle and procreation rituals, traditionally used during the night. for care instructions and terminology. Check. The rest of the note is not legible and covered by strange scribbles. You inspect the atlas. The atlas from 1984 is still in amazingly good condition. You'd think that it had been sitting here on this desk for decades, waiting for just you. Or just for you. You look through the table of contents and then flip through the atlas. Some pages are marked. Areas in the Antarctica and Australia are marked with strange curls. In addition, pages around the United States, the state of Massachusetts and the surrounding of Innsmouth are marked. The yellow road map of Innsmouth has been stuck into these pages like a bookmark. The lighthouse is marked. On the last page, you will find an entry. Landmass, distribution of political territories, valid for, followed by a series of small curls. You put back the book. How you found it. Let's inspect the telephone. It's an old telephone with a dial plate. Just for fun, you pick up the receiver and get a dial tone. Next to the phone is another note. Communication apparatus. Connects acoustically to other similarly constructed equipment after the identification number is entered. Identification numbers can be obtained in person or from the central register provided. Under the phone are two old books dating back to the 70s. The first one is a consumer electronics manual. A short leaf through shows you manuals and construction plans for TVs, cameras, telephones, radios, cars and the like. The other book is a Boston phone book. There's a bookmark peeking out of the side of it. When you open the book, on the page, the phone number of a carpet cleaning company is marked. You can make neither head nor tail of the matter. Let's call the phone number. On a whim, you decide to call the number. Maybe someone on the other end has an explanation for all this. You know that it's very likely that the shop is bankrupt and the connection has been switched off. After all, the number is from the early 70s. To your surprise, there's a signal, and it seems to ring at the other end. After 4 or 5 rings, someone actually picks up the phone. But instead of a voice, you hear a series of strange clicking noises, as if a giant cricket or an angry lobster were on the other end. Click, click. Let's hang up. There seems to be something wrong with the connection. Oh well. You inspect, nothing else. You think you have seen enough and continue to follow the banister up the stairs. Meanwhile, thunder and lightning outside has become so furious, just as if the centre of the storm is the lighthouse itself. Stoically, you continue your way upstairs. The banister continues to wobble and squeak suspiciously, but it stands the strain. It's kind of weird where it's describing the storm, but we just have the waves, the sound of the waves lapping. The radius of the spiral staircase gradually becomes smaller. You estimate that you are now halfway up the building. You walk past another platform floor. This level is obviously used for nothing else but storing boxes. At least 30 or 40 stacked boxes, full to brim with books. Ah, there we go, there is now. Seeing all these books causes a warm fuzzy feeling in the pit of your stomach. How adorable. The previous lighthouse keeper must have been bibliophiles. You hope that you get to meet them, even though the place does look pretty deserted. You hesitate. Inspect the books. You take a moment to examine the boxes and their contents more closely. Quickly you realize that these are almost exclusively non-fiction books. You discover lexicon, grammar for English and Spanish, non-fiction books on biology, chemistry, physics and geography. There is also a Bible, a guide to etiquette and a worn handbook for tourists on the East Coast. Out of interest, you flip through some of the books. The newest one seems to be from around the 1980s, but some go as far back as the 20s. Many are decorated with strange curls around the edges. In the last book you find a few books that differ greatly from the scientific character of the rest. These are books about occultism and obscure religions. Titles like The Mysteries of the Worm, Unspeakable Cults, and Liber Ivorus. Then there's also a book by a popular UFO nutcase, and suddenly everything makes sense. Maybe the lighthouse keeper was a little soft in the head, probably the loneliness. You keep walking up the stairs, past another mezzanine, and then you're on the upper level of the lighthouse. It's getting more and more unlikely that you'll find anything relating to your case here. Oh well. Up to the last level. Oh no, we should examine the mezzanine. The last steps are always the hardest. Or was it the first ones? No matter which steps, your heart is now beating so strongly that you can feel it pressing against your chest. Once you're back home, you should really consider a healthier lifestyle. At last, you have reached the top floor of the lighthouse. Dull glass windows separate you from the thunderstorm outside. Rain pours down on the panes, and the lighthouse occasionally illuminates the sky and reveals... Lightning occasionally illuminates the sky and reveals the billowing sea. If you were an artist, this would be the ideal place to paint tasteless paintings with ships on the churning waters. In the centre of the floor there is a metal column that must be there to support the lighthouse's uppermost platform. You assume that all this serves to stabilise and balance the construction. Apart from that, the floor is completely unfurnished. Sheets of paper with strange doodles are fixed to some of the window panes, pencil portraits of people, trees, houses, dogs. Around each drawing someone seems to have made notes, but you can't make out the language. You wonder if it was a destitute artist who lived here towards the end, or some sort of Russian sleeper agent. Another ramp leads to the top of the lighthouse, where the actual lighthouse apparatus must be installed. You walk up the steep stairs. You've done it. You made it to the top of the lighthouse. Not in a million years did you think that this job would take you to such an exciting place in the boring coastal town. There is still a nasty thunderstorm out there, and the lightning keeps illuminating the glass cage in erratic intervals. Spellbound, you look at the roaring waves. They're beautiful, the power and steady movements of the waves, the foamy salt water splashing up, oh so increasing incredibly high. You're so enticed by all that majestic beauty that you almost wish you were outside now, to feel the fresh sea breeze on your skin. But wait, why did you come here again? You try to tear yourself away from the endless spectacle of the sea and turn your attention to the centre of the small glass dome. It is then that you make a curious observation. The lighthouse has no light at all. There's no light construction that could rotate in the direction of the harbour or the sea, not even a flashlight on a microphone stand. Where you would expect some sort of electrical machine, there is only a black column of about 3 feet height, whose curved form merges at the top, like a kind of marble plate. An altar, a voice in the back of your head informs you. There's a cube on the altar. Look at the cube more closely. Intrigued, you walk closer. The material of the cube must be bronze. It glistens dully in front of the black marble column. The object looks as if it belongs just there. It's perfect right where it is. Everything looks as if it's been made from one piece. What you first thought was some arbitrary decoration turns out to be hieroglyphics, cranes, simple tools, knowing eyes. Curiously, you walk to the column on which the cube rests. What are Egyptian hieroglyphs doing in a lighthouse on the east coast of the United States? Your fingers are itching. You take the cube into your possession. Just for a brief second, you simply have to hold the bronze cube in your hands, feel the texture of the surface on your fingertips, inspect the hieroglyphics more closely. Measure its exact weight, smell it, lick it. You have to know everything, absolutely everything about it. You extend your hand and touch the cube. And now you can't let go of it again. It seems to have melted into your skin, or somehow attached itself to you. Yes, it has sucked itself onto you. And it continues to suck. Your consciousness and your soul. Everything is now trapped in a never-ending slipstream coming from this cube. You feel like you are caught in a mighty vortex that pulls you down deeper and ever deeper. All of a sudden you have a strange out-of-body experience and start to see yourself from the perspective of the cube. You feel something unbelievably strange beside you. Some sort of being has merged from the depth of the vortex and is passing you by to float in the opposite direction. Your soul is swallowed by the cube, and something strange occupies your body, loosens the last anchors and pushes you over the edge. You cling desperately to your mortal shell, and then your consciousness starts to crumble. For a brief moment you think that, from the perspective of the cube, you're looking at eyes that no longer belong to you. then everything goes black. Nice ending that time. Okay, as you wake up from the restless dream. Okay, so we'll continue that next time, because we've gone through a lot of stuff in this one. So I hope you've enjoyed. Hope you are having a good new year, and that this new year will be better to you than 2020 was. Even if 2020 was a fantastic year for you, I do hope that 2021 is actually better. But for now, that is it for me. I hope you have enjoyed. Hope you're keeping safe, and hope to see you next time. Goodbye. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, maybe consider hitting the subscribe button there on the right, or checking out some other videos here on the left, or perhaps you might even share with some friends.